It's great to see everyone here today. Thank you so much for joining us as we celebrate African American Studies 50th year here at the University of South Carolina. This is the first of our faculty conversation series, and we thank you for joining us today. And we thank Salandra Bowman for being here to be our first speaker. We'll go ahead and start. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A box, and we also have the chat here. The presentation is also on AFAM's Facebook page, so we're going live. So, so if you're watching from there, you can add comments or ask questions there as well. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome. I'm Kimberly Simmons. I'm an associate professor of anthropology and African American studies, and I'm also the co-director of the program this year. So again, welcome. I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Salandra has been a student in African American and African studies at every level. Currently, she serves as the interim vice president of education at SCETV. In this role, she is responsible for the oversight of training and research activities, instructional design, and education production. Salandra has led the implementation of multiple new initiatives, including the 21st Century Learners Week, Ready to Learn, and the SCETV Kids Club. She has produced multiple projects specific to her passions around youth engagement and equity and access in education, to include Soul Kit, Guideposts and Black Girl Celebration, and episodes of Carolina Classrooms. Prior to joining the team at SCETV, Bowman served as Director of Academic and Program Compliance at the South Carolina Technical College System. Salandra is also dissertating in educational foundations and inquiry. Her work explores the intersections of Black girlhood, educational content production, and public media. She looks forward to completing the dissertation and getting back to teaching this spring. Okay, with that, we welcome Salandra, and we're looking forward to your presentation today. The title of her talk is Creating Crescent on Black Studies, Black Girls, and Personal, Passionate, Participatory Inquiry. All right, thanks again, Salandra, and again, welcome to everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simmons, for that awesome introduction. I also want to make sure that I take the opportunity to say thank you to Drs. Whitted and Tolson for the invitation and for coordinating this faculty series. I would be remiss in not saying congratulations and kudos to other faculty members in AFAM for coordinating this 50th celebration. I think we are all excited about the Dean's announcement about prioritizing establishing African American Studies as a department here at UofSC. And so the struggle continues, so also the work continues. As I prepared for this talk today, I am certainly nervous and excited. It is an honor to be presenting amongst those who have been so foundational in me developing my epistemic orientations. But I took a look at my undergraduate transcript just to recall some of the courses that I took, and so many memories came flooding back just about my undergraduate experience here in African American Studies at UofSC. So many classes were instrumental in me just building my thoughts about the world and the contributions that I want to make. I am always advocating for bringing back certain classes. And there are so many classes on my transcript that are not currently being taught. And so right now I will make the appeal. And if there's anybody who's watching on Facebook who attended UofSC and was an African American Studies major during the 2001 to 2005 era, please pipe in. And let the folks know how much we enjoyed those courses. But I pause to say, bring back the Harlem Renaissance class, bring back the Toni Morrison class, bring back the Souls of Black Folk class, bring back the anthropological view of Blacks in film class. Those courses were certainly the Harlem Renaissance class. I don't know if I said that, but those were courses that certainly introduced me to the Black experience in ways that I had not learned in school, in community, and certainly have put me on a path that has given me the flexibility to navigate the professional spaces that I have encountered. Often when I am teaching and talking to students who are interested or undeclared, interested in African American studies or undeclared majors, I say to them when they ask me, what can you do with a major in that? I say anything you want, because that is certainly what I am doing. I am a testament to that. And I thank African American Studies at UofSC for those foundational seeds that were sown into me. And I hope that I am making you all proud as I continue in this endeavor. I certainly understand all of my work to be grounded in Black studies. And so what I want to do today is talk to you a little bit about this work that I am currently engaging in, and then provide some time for questions and conversation. I hope to do more of that than just talking in the camera. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and we can get started. Okay. According to He and Filion, personal, passionate, participatory inquiry is defined as research that is compelled by experiences and experiences researchers bring to the work that is grounded in a commitment to social justice concerns of people and places under construction, and work that is built on long-term heartfelt engagement and shared efforts. As a woman, middle-level leader in public media, my Black girlhood and collective Black girlhood inform my professional praxis. In addition to excellently performing the duties listed on my job description, I understand my personal responsibility in this role to be social justice oriented, which is in alignment with the provisional language enabling public media in the United States and South Carolina. I make no claims of objectivity, and as my love for Black girls is thick, much of my role engages the question posed by Ayers: how can public space for discussion, problem solving, and problem posing be expanded? I ask how public media professionals can narrow the gaps between audience and public and endeavor in that same regard. As will be explored in the context of the US South, school environments often disaffirm the epistemological orientations of Black and Brown students. Within these same environments, Black and Brown girls often contend with racialized and gendered experiences that further negate their epistemic orientations. While knowledge is often accessed and produced within schools, for Black and Brown girls, schools are more often sites of violence, physical, mental, and/or emotional. There is no shortage of proliferating narratives of physical violence against Black and Brown girls in schools, hypervisibility and punitive discipline, and general invisibility. Manifesting as social and political oppression within schools, these forces precipitate epistemic oppression. Here, epistemic oppression refers to the persistent epistemic exclusion that hinders one's contribution to knowledge production. In this study, I offer a transformative and intersectionally just methodology for countering epistemic oppression and advancing epistemic agency. For this study, epistemic agency is defined as the ability to utilize persuasively shared epistemic resources within a given community of knowers in order to participate in knowledge production and, if required, the revision of those same resources. That definition is from Dotson. Guided by Townley's unpacking of the myth of Cassandra and Jarman's positioning of Black girls as from the future, I understand Black girls to be taken for granted prophets, denied participation in educational epistemic systems. According to Greek mythology, Cassandra was endowed with the gift of prophecy, but because she agentically refused the sexual arouses of Apollo, she was cursed by the loss of credibility. While I wrestle with notions of Black girls as cursed, data supports claims that Black girls have similar experiences as Cassandra in that their assertions gain no purchase. They are overlooked, dismissed, disregarded, as though she did not speak at all, in and beyond schools. In the mythology, Cassandra's gift of prophecy is never lost. What is diminished is her relationship with her epistemic community. She is not perceived as a credible source, and such exclusion impacts her socio-emotional well-being and her sense of belonging in the community. Heeding Townley's arguments that relationships of trust are a fundamental part of epistemic and social life, I conceptualized this study as a relationship of trust between myself, the researcher, and the Black girl prophets. This research is situated within a public health and global peace crisis. We are in the midst of a global effort to stop the spread of coronavirus and hate-related deaths. As the coronavirus Delta variant spreads more rapidly than vaccination development, particularly for youth and children, school-age children are experiencing another unprecedented and unparalleled school year. This study addresses the pandemic-confirmed finding that technology has advanced at a much quicker pace than public policy, digital literacy, and professional development in education. In education, nationally and locally, these conditions revealed stark inequities in access to educational materials for teaching and learning, particularly in rural and Title I schools and districts. Such a need for learning supports also created space for public media to re-engage educational agencies as a viable stakeholder in the long-term provision of resources, as educational development is endemic to the very establishment of public media. Such a need also aligns with gaps in PBS public media viewership. The PBS audience viewership primarily consists of early learners through PBS content and adult or lifelong learners, which precipitated the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's call for the entire public media system to engage public media's missing middle, red, adolescents, and young adults. We can chat a little more about public media in South Carolina and how public media supports the state after this, but I don't want to belabor this with more details about public media. Yet the broader availability of resources for teaching and learning within this moment of inaccessibility and racial reckoning is insufficient in and of itself. The current moment calls for anti-racist learning and professional development supports with the goal of improving educational outcomes for all students, in addition to cultivating an overall more informed, inclusive, and civil citizenry. Without these learning supports, the development of a sense of belonging for Black and Brown students and critical competencies in general is less optimal, as epistemicide is highly likely. One goal of this study is to respond to the call for more accessible and effective learning supports to meet the current moment. Another goal, as represented in the conceptual framework, is to reimagine epistemic flow in educative epistemic spaces. In this study, I understand the epistemic system to be the constellation of human, organizational, and material resources that support knowledge production in South Carolina. The actors of prominence within this system are myself as a passionate stakeholder and professional connector, Black girls as students, educators and educational institutions, and public media. Within this system, I seek to offer Black girls an opportunity to share their creativity and ways of knowing with educators, administrators, support staff, and community. As co-creators of educational or instructional content, they themselves become educators and active participants in knowledge production. Taking gender into account, I argue for the necessity of the development of learning supports that promote a sense of belonging among Black and brown girls in schools. Even within this moment of racial reckoning, the narrative of the endangered Black male pervades. Indeed, efforts to affirm and protect Black men and boys are both necessary and in alignment with womanist ideology. It is also equally necessary to take into account racialized and gendered experiences of Black women and girls who struggle to hold center when race and gender are compartmentalized. Black woman feminism and girlhood often critique standard curriculum as spaces of death for Black and brown girls and implore educators to employ curricular practices that privilege cultural nuances, historical traditions, and the legitimacy of Black girls' self-representation and lived experience. As this work calls for the audacity to reimagine what is essential for those who will inherit the future, I position Black girls as essential stakeholders in offering solutions to meet present-day challenges and in creating the worlds they will inhabit. I ask, who will create the conditions for Black girls waiting on their moment and when? I respond, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Because the need for affirmative and relevant learning environments, experiences, and resources remain, I offer my positional power as a co-conspiratorial force in Black girlhood celebration with the goal of promoting the survival of a whole people. I ask, what conditions are necessary to create what conditions are necessary to create educative environments that take seriously the epistemic contributions of Black girls? What kinds of media content might materialize when Black girl creativity is centered in production processes? And what might we come to know about public media as an educative site by centering these conditions, by creating these conditions and centering the radical imaginations of Black girls? In this study, I use youth participatory action research and invite Black girls as agentic contributors to the South Carolina educational epistemic system using public media as a leveraging and developmental agent. I argue that the ability to agentically contribute to the epistemic system counters epistemic oppression by offering educators and the public at large a window into the worldviews and character of South Carolina's Black girls, often misrepresented in viral representations and rendered invisible in educational curricula. My goal through this study is to position Black girls as youth educators and give them voice in countering the hidden curriculum. Equally important to me in this study are the ways in which the contributors make collective meaning, the recycles of the production process, and the different dimensions of the world we create en route to the world we create. Are the human transformations that take place, adults included? These methodological distinctions are also grounded in what I know based on my experience in So Hot, a space that deliberately centers and celebrates Black girlhood. In So Hot, the expectation is that showing up to engage Black girls will be reciprocal and life-giving, that there is genius in Black girl being all by itself, and that genius is freedom when valued by adults. In more traditional terms, this study seeks to support the value of YPAR as an intervention to the adultism that is nuanced and pervasive in research using YPAR. With the active participation of Black girls, I co-created, probably should be we, then it should be we co-created digital standard aligned learning objects to be made available via SCETV's educational resource platform, knowitall.org. Using public media as an entry point, I invite Black girls to agentically participate in contributing to the statewide educational epistemic system with the goal of creating transformative media and experiences for those involved and for those who will engage in the media that is produced. So what I wanted to do, I'll back up a little bit and just share a little bit about the study. So it is a youth participatory action research study that involves a group of 9 girls from Upward Bound at University of South Carolina. I've been working with these girls for approximately 8 weeks to create a series around the character named Crescent. When we started the series, Crescent was just a dream for me. Certainly in my passionate work centering Black girls, I have always thought about how my professional work will advance causes important to Black girls. In this particular role, I had the opportunity to be creative in ways that I had not imagined. When thinking about Crescent, though, I knew that there would be serious limitations for me as an older person seeking to create relevant content for younger people and content that really centered their ways of knowing and express how they are understanding and interpreting the current context. And so I received permission from my supervisors, I'm not sure if she's on here or not, to move forward with piloting this particular series. I mentioned in the introduction that there is what we call a missing middle in public media, and that is because the majority of PBS content appeals to early learners. So after 5th grade, elementary school, beyond those who are just enthusiasts of the PBS content, then our viewership drops off and then picks back up closer to the 30 and up age group. And so there is a significant gap in our audience. So as I am hearing and understanding what the call to action is from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, I am thinking about how to involve Black girls in creating the kind of content that they want to see, the kind of content that will be appealing and engaging to their peers, and also the kind of content that will be instructive to their teachers, particularly considering the fact that South Carolina sometimes winds up in the news as it relates to viral scenarios that have taken place within our schools. The outcome of that dream and permission to move forward is a series that we are calling Conversations with Crescent. Right now, we are working through the final stages of producing the pilot episode that will be shared during my dissertation defense. I think I would be speaking a little too soon to call out a date. I will leave that to my chair to take care of that. But I would like to share with you some of the findings that have emerged as we have been participating in this work. So first, I'll just start with some of the things that I have come to learn about the girls and about what will make their educational experiences more meaningful from their perspective. I'll start with this conversation between, or this conversation wherein Shayla and Jessica are sharing their perspectives about what it is that they want to learn in schools, how they want to see themselves represented in the curriculum. So Shayla says, I just think they keep repeating the same thing every year and trying to teach us the same thing every year. Like if we're going to learn about something, we need to learn about somebody different. It's always the same people, and we've been learning that since the 1st grade. Half of us about to graduate, and we're still learning the same people. We know about those people, we grow up learning about those people at home, so it's not something that we need to be taught over and over again. It's people that have done numerous things that we don't even know about. Jessica chimes in the comments and says, right, Jessica chimes in the comments and says, right, it's sort of hypocrisy. I needed to know what Jessica meant by that, so I asked her. Jessica states, it's sort of like hypocrisy because they're saying as a Black woman, you can do so much if you applied yourself and you can achieve many great things in life yet they're repeating these things. They're not giving us examples, or they're not, it's just like, it's like saying something without showing the actual figures, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like they say doctor. If you're a teacher, why not pull up doctors that you know or that you met, or give us a book? You know what I'm saying? Just give us something to look up to. This conversation, inspired by postings for participants wanting to see themselves represented in modern history lessons, provided great insights. While providing clarity on modern history and their curricular ideas, these sentiments were offered. Shayla and Jessica are appealing for a culturally responsive and sustaining education at minimum. I'm sorry, and sustaining education at minimum. Pedagogical practices. Their curriculum reflections suggest that they have been students of culturally relevant teaching. They are aware of historical figures or representations of Black excellence. They also reflect that culturally relevant teaching is perceived as insufficient for meeting their evolving needs in a rapidly evolving time. A culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy requires meaningful engagement with students and curricular and teaching practices implemented in consideration of those discoveries. It also requires an ethic of care that sets high expectations of students. The appeal in the excerpt above shows that the co-creators are seeking relevant indicators of excellence beyond the ritualistic honorees celebrated annually. Beyond the relevance discussion in the excerpt above, we are engaged in an ethical one. Jessica is contending with the ethic of care expressed in routine engagements with historical iconography at the expense of self-discovery through learning. She is contending with responding to questions about her future and seeking proximate examples of the possibilities. In my defense, I will share the solution that they pose to this particular issue that they've identified, but certainly there is a lot more to this conversation. There are more findings that help us get a better idea of what young people want to see in terms of the guidance for the different types of workforce decisions that they are making. So for example, long gone are shadow days. They are not as interested in shadow days as they are in social media content that delves into the lifestyles in particular career fields or career fields or areas. And so those particular types of sentiments are very instructive for us in public media, and I look forward to sharing more with you all about it. What I also want to do is share with you all the power, or what I came to confirm even more as the power of Black girl ways of knowing and their ability to take to suggest small edits that make a big impact. So I am sharing now some illustrations from the Conversations with Crescent series. In this, as I stated, I only had a dream. A part of what I am working through is really trying to articulate how I've navigated power in this particular scenario or in this study, but I really only came with a dream. For me, I wanted the girls to dream up Crescent, to dream up her world. What is she like? What is her mission? What are her interests? What kinds of stories does she want to tell? What is her intervention? And so we started just with a conversation about who she is, what she looks like. So using acrostic poems, we were able to chart out Crescent's defining characteristics. Using other digital platforms, we were able to chart out what Crescent should look like. The illustrations on the top row are the initial illustrations that the illustrator and animator produced based on their brainstorming. At present, Crescent is already selected. I just cannot tell you which one she is, should the girls change their minds. But we sent these particular images on the top row to the girls to request their feedback. And then we also discussed it in one of our pre-production sessions. In that, they made a number of notes about hair, about accessories, about posture, and about body type. There were some things that were a given. Crescent needed to be darker skinned. Crescent needed to be fuller bodied. Crescent needed to have fly edges. Crescent needed to wear glasses. And so those were some of the commonalities. And then the other flares were based on different sets of data that were provided by the participants. So you will notice in the first image, Crescent goes from having straight hair to having braids. Her jewelry changes from just a regular flat necklace to a necklace with the crescent moon. And her skin tone gets darker because they said that she wasn't dark enough for their vision initially. In the second image of Crescent, this is a very interesting conversation. The idea was that this particular Crescent looked too adult. And part of the reason that she looked too adult was because her body was so curvy. So we were engaged in a conversation about adultism and embodiment, and that type of conversation right now, particularly post Ma'Khia Bryant, is certainly one that Black girls are impassioned about. I'm finding that in this research and my experience working with Black girls in other areas. And so they wanted to address that and make some additional suggestions. Number one, as opposed to the skirt and showing so much of Crescent's shape, they suggested that she have some high-waisted jeans. They didn't mind that the color was still the same. They were still red jeans, but they needed to be high-waisted. That Crescent needed a book bag instead of a purse, that she was going to school and not to the club. And that she needed a bigger fro. And so those are the changes. And there are small edits. Oh, and stud earrings, because those chandelier ones were quote unquote momish. So those small edits wound up making a very big difference when the second iteration of that illustration was shared with us. And then the final one being Crescent with the cornrows and the edges. Now, this was a hilarious conversation because in this particular illustration, I learned what Black girls do not want. And what they do not want is a wet hairstyle. And so in this particular one, the comments came back, I like everything but the hair. And so we had to have a conversation with our illustrator about how he might address the ponytail issue in column number 3. They sent suggestions. They tried to tell me what it should look like. And of course, it certainly turned out to be a major impactor in the visual. Now, certainly in our next editing session, we will continue our conversation about dress code, which is another issue that consistently comes up in conversations about Black girls, because they identified the midriff as something that will be a challenge for an educational resource to be used in schools, but the illustrator did not make that change. And so we will see what other edits they suggest as a result of that. But for me, I'm finding it fascinating just to observe what sometimes we take for granted as just, girly things, when their eye and their perspective certainly has a major impact. And for me, these examples of who Crescent has the potential to be are so much more exacting as a result of their input. We will see who turns out to be Crescent. We will see if these characters show up in any other forms and what other characters show up in this pilot episode. I also want to show you Crescent's environment. I'm sorry, I moved my screen. So these are also illustrations we get excited about en route to the finished product. But Crescent, you know, she's engaged in you know, making friends and having conversations and these types of things. And so she certainly is one who is active in the courtyard and, you know, has her squad and that type of thing. But Crescent is also going to have an encounter in the classroom in the first episode. And you all will learn about that should you make it to the defense or by visiting knowitall.org once the video is posted and ready for teachers to implement in the classroom. And so I just wanted to share with you all some of what I have been taking up as a result of what has been invested in me in African American studies at UofSC. I started the program in August of 2001, and I have not let go ever since. So certainly I hope that Black Studies is apparent in this research, and I'm happy to answer any questions or reminisce with any of my colleagues in the room. Thank you.
That is fascinating. I'm looking here, so for the applause button, 1 second here. Oh goodness, that is so exciting, Salandra. You should see the comments. Can you see the comments in the chat box here? Let's see.
Yes, no whack hairstyle. No whack hairstyle, absolutely. There are a number of hair-related findings. What I will say is that hair was a part of the discussion from the introductory session to the very last. There were 6 pre-production sessions until that 6th session. And so I will share that one of the findings that was of interest to me from that was related to PBS and some of our characters. Of course, another part of this is me recognizing that there are no Black PBS characters who are the center of any of the shows. And so there is a possibility that Crescent can be one of those options as we move forward. I don't know, but there's a possibility, at least for South Carolina. But the girls, I asked them in the initial meeting, who is your favorite PBS character? I wanted to gauge familiarity, see what their interests are and what they like. One person said Cokie from Wild Kratts. I don't know if anybody has kids or if your children used to watch Wild Kratts, but it is a nature show. There was one African American and one Latina female on that show, and it is all about introducing kids to nature, animals, the environment, and those types of things. But Cokie's natural hair and dark skin is what attracted this girl as an early learner to PBS shows. And so as we prepare for the premiere of Alma's Way, which features a Puerto Rican girl and was created by her name is Sonia, but her name was Maria on Sesame Street. As we prepare for the premiere of that particular show, we are keeping up with the conversation in terms of race and gender representations in public media content or in PBS content. And so it's just exciting to see the girls confirm that natural hair is of interest in animated shows and in shows that are not on cable provided platforms.
Exactly. We're all excited. We're excited for you. We can't wait to see it. And we're cheering you on here. Let's see. There are some more comments in the chat box here, and maybe a question. And if you'd like to ask a question, you have a comment, please raise your hand there, and that way we can enable your mic too. So let's see, scrolling here. So you saw the no whack hairstyle. We were all kind of laughing about that. The midriff comment, that was important too. I'm just finding it fascinating
Well,
thinking about it almost like in a focus group situation where the girl, where they're really reflecting on this and thinking about their own lived experiences and again, what's not out there and what they like to see and thinking about, public media, but I was thinking about social media too, perhaps. And again, just what's circulating,
Well, what I will do, because it seems like the questions are going to just kind of push me there, is just share a little bit about what they're talking about. And so, yes, those situations that they face, and yes, social media does come into the conversation quite prominently. And a lot of it has to deal with hair. Oh, so much of it has to do with hair. So when we're talking about the types of situations they face, they're having conversations about how hair is a perceived limitation in participation, particularly in sports, and those types of things, like getting, how cheerleaders and they get a kit at some point in the year. Well, are all coaches cognizant that everybody's hair not going to fit in that ponytail holder? So maybe the coach needs to consider what other hairstyles students, have, or on dance teams and those types of things, and the uniform calling for particular hairstyles, and Black girls winding up with heat damage to their hair because they've been trying to straighten it out to get this particular ponytail that has been requested. They had conversations about microaggressions. They've had conversations about boys and what boys find attractive. They had conversations about what they've seen on social media and some of the different conversations that are taking place in the comments, and their thoughts about them. They've had conversations just about engaging friendships and things in school, and how they respond when people say particular things. They've just shared as we brainstormed what the first episode was going to be about. Because I will say, one of the things that was important to me was to say to them, your ways of knowing and your experiences are important. However, we are coming to this table as producers of educational content. And what I am doing is taking seriously everything that you are saying. We have a mission here. And what you have to do is envision this particular content being used in the classroom. And so I think what they understand hair to be is a really good tool for instruction and being able to engage in a number of conversations. In some of our pre-production sessions, we've had conversations about technology and teaching and learning. So in addition to asking them to share their experiences in producing the episode, I've asked them, okay, we need to look at the standards. What standards align with this particular script that we've outlined here? What kinds of learning activities do you imagine your teachers using this resource to implement? If this is for an ELA class, you have to write a composition paper. What might the prompts look like? Are there any potential discussion questions? Those types of things. And then finally asking them to help me determine the keywords to be used in the search once we make this available on knowitall.org. I just want to make sure that they are understanding a number of the different components to this particular work, and hoping that some of them will want to work in public media once they graduate from high school. And then another outcome of this study is the hope that we can expand the conversation about the different professional options in the world of education. Much of what we hear about are the experiences and findings from teachers in traditional classrooms or during instruction. And I am certainly aware from my professional experience that there are so many other ways, and opportunities to be involved professionally in the education world. And so I just want to offer additional examples of how we can do that, even in institutions that are not 100% consider educational agencies.
Mm-hmm. That is fascinating. Salandra, are you able to talk about, I'm just curious what the girls said about, what the students said about, hey, about color, you know, in terms of colorism, and again, with Crescent
Okay,
and how in her skin tone.
so they, in terms of them determining that Crescent would be darker, they wanted Crescent to be darker because they felt like darker skinned girls do not get as much love. That the boys think of them as less attractive, and that in a lot of ways that girls are, there are expectations of darker skinned Black girls that there are not of lighter skinned Black girls. I'll also say, and this is particularly to me in terms of digital literacies and what the research process, I've conducted these sessions just as a part of my work day, because this is also part of my professional work. And I had to run to the restroom. And so, you know, of course, have to give over co-hosting rights and say, you know, y'all please talk, have this conversation. I did not learn what the conversation was about until I pulled the transcript and watched the recording. So while I was away in the restroom, they had a whole conversation basically about colorism. Brainstorming additional episodes. They wanted to know if Crescent, if others in the group were open to Crescent having a biracial friend, and just having a conversation about those experiences. Also say that they certainly have suggested to me that they understand the value of epistemic agency, in that they want diverse representation in the episode. And so they want Crescent to have diverse friends, and those types of things. And so just getting to know and see what they're thinking and what their dreams and wishes are has been fascinating. I'll also pause to shout out Dr. Lee Sugi. Because these students are students who are participating in Upward Bound. They are students who have been engaged with the Black Studies course. If they have not taken the course, I'm sure they have been hearing about it. Their former director is someone who's also degreed in Black Studies, Mr. James Prince. I'm sure those of you who are on campus know him. And so the students in Upward Bound are students who are not distant from a Black Studies epistemology. And certainly I'm making assumptions about what I'm interpreting in listening to them. It may be that they had no connection to that class or never had a conversation with Dr. Lee, but certainly Black Studies is showing up in the data.
Awesome, that's very important, very important. A lot of questions, a lot of what the student said, and that reminds me of what, you know, was discussed in the documentary Dark Girls too, just in what we learn about colorism and how we talk about it, just experiences and reflections on it. We do have some more comments. We do have a hand up. Nancy Tolson has a question or comment, and then we have a question in the Q&A box that we'll go to. Nancy, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay. Hey, Salandra, you did an excellent job. I'm so happy about all of this, but I wanted to ask you a question in regards to, so the winner of whoever they select as Crescent, the image, can the other two just become part of that inclusion of background characters? Because I think they're all beautiful and they're all needed, because we do come in all shapes and sizes. After all, we are living in a Lizzo world. But I really want to tell you how much I appreciate all of this, as well as I do think that inclusion, and I think these little girls are so thoughtful in what they're thinking, and I wish that this could be part of the discussion, but publicly shown, because I think that they are thinking outside of a wonderful box, especially when they're including other friends, including biracial children. So I think this is great, and you keep on stay on your mission, because this is a good one.
Thanks so much, Doc. In terms of the other illustrations, you are correct and right in alignment with our thinking. The question is going to be, though, what edits they suggest for those that are not selected to be Crescent. Because if we go back, I'll share again just to, you will notice that Sorry. Everyone has glasses. Everyone is darker skinned. So there's not as much variation in the illustrations because they're all intended to be crescent. But if one of them, with the one that is selected, it can stay as is, but we may need to reconsider some of the features that are prominently displayed here if this is her friend group. I will pose it to the group. They may want her crescent to have a nice chocolate squad. It's possible, but based on what they've been saying, it is not my assumption that that is the goal for the friend group. But at the same time, I've also heard the script and I've also heard their voices with the script. And so I would be curious, based on their knowledge of the different characters, what suggestions they pose for these other two if we use them, or what suggestions they pose for another character that we need to illustrate. There are a few more that I'm waiting to see. Hopefully they come today.
Oh, you had to please keep us posted. This is all very exciting. Okay, let's see. There's a question in the Q&A box from Adam Biggs. Would it be possible for Crescent to have different hairstyles just to keep her updated, or maybe to comment on the importance of hair? So to have it, kind of change from time to time.
Absolutely. They'll all have different hairstyles. They will all change. These are just the prototypes. One of the hairstyles that is a couple of, well, I'll say this. At some point, a puff needs to be on somebody's head. They've also made that clear. In addition to the one puff, they like the two puffs, and then the two puffs with the back bang. Okay, so I mean, just down to it. Ask. And for me, it's also just a delight because just from engaging with Nikki and some of her work in guiding questions and enlightened witness, the question, what do you want, is a question that Black women often struggle to answer, even Black girls, because we are thinking a lot about what should be, what others have said we should want, who others have and how others have said we should be. And so at the expense of our own self-determination, we fold into other people's desires. And so what these girls are saying is that they can answer it. In my coding, I used in vivo coding using an enumerated spreadsheet. I was able to pull for every instance the word want was used in the pre-production sessions. And it was certainly a word that was used with it in the top 5 counts. And so they were able to share their wants and their desires, which is also it's also a delight, because as even as they say, they're not asked that as often, and what they are asked to do is regurgitate or respond to what has been shared with them, as opposed to sharing from their own starting with them.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We have about 7 more minutes. I'm wondering if anyone else would like to ask a question, make a comment using the mic. If so, please raise your hand and we can enable your mic.
Let me see who's on here.
Yeah, go ahead and see, and look at the comments there too. There might be something you'd like to address there as well.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Bryan. I noticed the image of the SC flag was removed from the shirt of one of the versions of Crescent. Did they say why this edit was important? Basically, they said they didn't like the shirt. So it wasn't, I don't think it was the palmetto tree and the moon that was problematic. It was more of the colors and the design of the shirt. Their suggestion was that if Crescent is going to wear something that is emblematic of who she is, then it will more likely be an accessory than a t-shirt. for Crescent, they said that she is more likely to wear graphic tees. And so I am curious as to what the design on those graphic tees looks like, because I asked them, I said, well, if she wears statement tees, we're going to have to come up with the statements. And so we shall see how that evolves as well.
All right, great. Let's see. Do you see any other comments here? I know you've answered some of the questions as we've gone along here. Just want to make sure you've seen all the comments to see if there's anything else you'd like to mention.
Not necessarily comments, but I would just like, I'm not exactly sure how many people on the webinar are students, or who in the who is joining us from social media, who's also an undergraduate student, and just continue to advocate for taking African American Studies courses. I came to USC in 2001 as an undeclared first-generation college student. My advisor in OSP at the time, Ms. Counts, was coming very shortly after, but my advisor at the time said, I think you should take an African American Studies course. I took that course and got an answer to so many questions that I'd had as a young person. I took that course after asking so many of my teachers in high school, when are we going to read something about Black people? What about Black people? You know, all of that. And 20 years later, I am still doing this work, and it has been flexible for me across all of my professions. I have been able to find graduate programs to extend my study. And so what I can say is that a Black Studies education is one that will grow with you. The goal of Black Studies is to help you become. And so if you are interested in taking coursework that is going to help you change the world, but it's also going to change you, then come on, let's get some of this good. And what I can also assure you is that those faculty members who are teaching these courses and holding up the program, soon to be department, are certainly folks who are growth oriented. They didn't keep me to the curb. You know, I'm still around. And so get involved, take advantage of the opportunities, go on the Civil Rights Tour, go to the National Museum of African American History when that trip opportunity is offered to you. Sign up for the office hours, take the courses, read the text. I often tell Dr. Donaldson, I don't like asking you questions because I walk away with a reading list, but I certainly learned so much from just talking to him about small things. And so I just encourage you all to consider the coursework, to consider the major. It is not a dead end. It is not something that is going to be a waste of your money. It will work if you work it, all right?
We love it, Salandra. I mean, they're all, look at a lot of amens and hands, you know, and applause over here in the comment box. Chat. Thank you so much for that. That is right on. That is right on. And we're working on some t-shirts too, so we might incorporate some of what you said right there.
Word.
So important. And thanks again for the what you said about the different classes too. Some of the classes, you know, I know we love to see back in circulation. You know, the film class, I've taught it, but it's like every 2 years it circles back around. It'd be great to have that on, you know, have it more frequently.
The Proud Family is coming back, so you have to. You have to. I
don't know if I heard that. Okay, all right, okay. And I've used the Proud Family in class before, just you know, images, stereotypes, that kind of thing. Okay. That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. We're so excited about all the work you're doing and how you represent African American studies too, and all the wonderful work that you do. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so very much. I know we're coming up on time. Let me check one more time. I think, okay, we have all the questions, and let's see here. And the chat, I think we're good there with the comments and the questions. So with that, I think Salandra's video. There you are. No, it's okay.
Yes,
It's
I'm
okay.
still here. I just took myself off the spotlight.
It's okay. It's okay. No, with that, we can go ahead. We'll wrap up now. Thank you so very much. We're so excited about the work you're doing. All the best with this project. Please keep us posted. Thank you for starting our series. We're proud of you and all the work you're doing. And thanks everyone for joining us here today for our conversation series. And I know Nancy has put the link here in the chat for all the AFM 50 events that we're having this year. So we look forward to seeing you throughout the year. Thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you again soon. All right, take care. Thank you.
Oh my word. Oh, are
Go
we
ahead.
live? Turn that
Let
light.
me see. We are. And I think, hold on one second. Let me just look. Oops. Okay. In fact, let me stop the recording quickly.